is Monday, February 28th, 2022, 7 p.m. here at City Hall, City Council Chambers, City of Waverly, for the study session meeting of the City Council. Officially call the meeting to order and ask Carla to conduct the roll call, please.
Beaufore. Here. Birgen.
Here I am.
Drenkow.
Here.
Rathe. Kangas. Why did I say Beaufore? Sorry, Meyers. Here. So sorry. Kangas.
Present.
Rathe. Here. Schneider.
Here.
Excellent.
Glazer's absent.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I see our guest council member couldn't make it this evening, so wish him well. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, item C. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Move forward with item D, approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to do so.
I'll move approval of the agenda as shown.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Drenkow. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Section E is community highlight. Item number 1 is recognition of the Waverly-Shell High School girls wrestling team, the 2022 state championship winners. Have Coach Meyers come on in and give us an introduction and a brief rundown of this team's accomplishments. And for the record, not all of them are here tonight. We had basketball send-off this evening and probably some other obligations. So, Coach, if you go to on the other side of the podium there so we can catch you on the microphone, that would be great.
All right, well, thanks for having us tonight. This is your 2022 four-time Iowa Girls State Championship team. So I'm going to read their names off and give just a little bit of the place winners, brief explanation of what we did. So team members: Abby Doyle, Alexis Johnson, Allie Seegers, Amber Hoth, Annika Behrens, who was a state runner-up. She's not here. She's currently in Des Moines getting ready to play basketball for tomorrow. Ashley Heine, Brindley Meyer, Eva Diaz, state champ, two-time state champ for us. Eva Heisey, Evie Wagner, Gail Robinson, Hayden Schneider, two-time place winner, third place this year. Kaylee Herval, fifth place, state place winner. Carissa Oldenberger, Kiara Jamesi, fifth place at the state tournament. Kaisa Klein, Lauren Seegers, Lily Stow, Macy Smith, state runner-up, who's also on the basketball team. Madison Henricks, who's the third place state place winner, and Mary Corollas. Coaches: Eric Wickham, Josh Meyer, Lino Jamesi, Andrew Schneider, Avery Meyer, JC Meyer, and Rusty Haggerty. Just a brief rundown: four-time state champs. Ever since this tournament's been started in 2019, these girls have won the state tournament. This year was the hardest that it's ever been as far as competition-wise. It went from 87 athletes in that first state tournament to just over 700 this year. So the growth of girls wrestling in Iowa is expanding rapidly. And sanctioning of girls wrestling is coming for next year. So next year will be the first annual girls state tournament sanctioned by the Girls Union. So we're excited for that. I've told these girls this a few times: we are not the favorite going into that tournament, so we've got work to do if we want to win that first one. And they know that, and they're ready for the challenge. Again, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll just mention, City of Waverly, the community as a whole has been, blessed with being able to host that tournament, the first 4 years that it's been in place, and I appreciate the school district and the wrestling programs, their participation in making that happen. And unfortunately, the writing on the wall is that we probably won't be the host once it goes to sanctioning. It was great while it lasted, but all good things get better.
That's where we wanted it to go. We wanted it to be big enough that we couldn't host it, that we needed to move it on to bigger and better places, and that's what happened.
We'll remember where it started.
That's
so,
right.
I'll give a round of applause.
Awesome.
Coach has your certificates. They'll get you. So thanks again for coming out tonight. And next up, we have the boys team with Coach Eric Wickham.
Do you want them to come in and around? Or
Just-
what's going to work best?
However you want.
Okay. We'll have them do that. We've got a pile of them out here. Name's Eric Wickham, head wrestling coach at Waverly here. Thank you, first of all, for inviting us in. First thing that I want to mention is, this is not the first time that Mayor Hoffman's been around us. He's helped us travel a number of times. Actually, during the snowstorm in January, he was our guy that got us there, and we're very thankful for that. So, thank you for everything that you've done for us this year.
You're welcome.
This year we had a unique circumstance, something that doesn't come about very often. But we were in position to win our 4th straight traditional state championship, which we fell short of. But we were able to win our 2nd consecutive dual team state championship, the 14th overall state championship in Waverly-Shell school's history in the sport of wrestling, which is amazing. This group of kids, phenomenal. They did just tireless workers and great people to be around. Having had the opportunity to be part of coaching state championship teams the last few years, one of the things that I've kind of told people that are close to me that before you could tolerate a lot of different things to have success, and as you start getting to that point, you want to make sure that everyone's doing it the right way, and not that it wasn't. But you want to be surrounded by people that you want to be around. And this individual, this group of kids, were exactly that, a type of group of people that you want to be around on a daily basis. Through their work ethic, their commitment, and just being good people, they're certainly role models for a lot of our kids that are coming through the program. Which on that note too, we had more kids, and I believe it's partly in success. I think it's partly about the kids that we have involved in our program, but our youth wrestling program saw its highest numbers ever, with over 200 kids from K through essentially 6th grade. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm going to introduce to you your 2022 3A State Dual Championship team. And at the same time, I'm also going to introduce to you the first ever team to qualify all 14 weights in any class. So if you weren't aware, the only other time that this has been done in a similar fashion, Don Bosco qualified all 12 when it was 12 weights. Since the change of 14 weights around, I want to say it was 2000s, it's never been done. So this is your first Iowa high school team to ever do that. Aiden, why we come just kind of over here. Your first member is Aiden Riggins, 160-pound state champ. He's now a 2-time state champion. Alex Horniak, state qualifier at 106 pounds. Boz Diaz, 3rd place, 145 pounds. Braxton Westendorf was 8th at 120 pounds. Carter Fecht was 7th at 132 pounds. Caden Langrick was 8th at 152 pounds. Jake Walker was a state runner-up at heavyweight. Lane McDonald, state qualifier, 220 pounds. McCray Haggerty, state champion and 2-time state champion at 195 pounds. Robert Pointer, 182-pound state qualifier. Ryder Block, state champion and now 2-time state champion, 138 pounds. Sam Horniak, state qualifier, 126 pounds. Sean Mwangi, state qualifier, 170 pounds. And Zane Behrens, two-time state place winner at 113 pounds. He was 6th this year. Bringing in, let's see if we can.
You bring him on up here.
Right,
Bring 'em on
you'll
up
come
here.
right in front. These members are selected, so when we qualify for the state duels, our non-varsity guys will select typically between 6 to 8 individuals, one in a dual format that can help fill weights. Also through that process, earning this opportunity to be part of that state qualifying team goes to them what they've done during the season, what they've put into it, and as also a reward for their commitment to the program. So that first person, Gabbard Jones, 106 pounds. Come right up over here, Gabbard. 138 pounds, Brady Rowling. 145 pounds, Ethan Bibler. 152 pounds, Dylan Stockdale. 160 pounds, Xander Wiedemeyer. 182 pounds, Tyler Gass. 220 pounds, Caden Weatherall and Jake Stack. All right. Coaching staff, Mike Schwab. Josh Meyer, come over here, Meyer. Brett Wheelan. Brett Behrens. Nick Sand. And Alino Jamesi. And I've got a couple missing here tonight. Wes Schweer and Jurgen Block. Oh, and Cody Pierce. Thank you. Okay. See, I told you these guys are good guys. But once again, I'd like to thank you for inviting us in. Certainly, these young men have earned a great opportunity in capturing state championships. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations one more time, and thanks for the beef sticks. They're always great, so catch them off guard.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Take care. Thank you.
Great job.
None. Well, except Boz, probably. As they exit, so we don't take up a whole lot of time, this is the future of our community, and that's why I feel it's important to bring them in here. Sound like a broken record when I do that, but we got one more group to come in, but it's quite amazing. So, Bill, can you see if that jazz choir's out there? I don't know how many of them are joined us.
Go all the way, just keep going.
This is a completely different change of pace. I'll tell you that. No less important, but come on up to the podium, Coach Russell.
This is the varsity jazz choir at the high school. Half of them. It's a group of 18. We also have a accompanist and a percussionist and a string bass player. So the people that come tonight, we probably have, how many people are sopranos here? We represent altos. How many altos? Yeah. Tenors and basses. So you have a little bit of every part. But a lot of people were working and doing things, but we appreciate that you're inviting us to come. So
how would you describe jazz choir for those that don't
Jazz
know what?
choir. Well, this is an audition group. So in November, they auditioned to be in this group, and then we start practicing in December, and our first concert's in February. We just performed last Friday night, and we have competition. It was earlier in the month. And then we just started new literature today, and then we'll have our big pop show at the end of the year. And we're not really a competing group. We went to state contests, and that's about the only thing we do. We could go every weekend someplace, but these kids are busy, and so we just do it really more for fun and just for the community. We went out to Ledges and did a Christmas party, and so if groups in the community want entertainment, these are the kids that go instead of, 15 to 16 go instead of 50 or 60 in choir. So they're kind of our representatives of our program that go
Excellent.
out. Yeah.
Can you introduce the members that are present tonight?
Sure. We have Cora Ellingworth. We have Daniel Becker, Ellie Neuendorf, Isaac Becker, Kayla Jeppesen, Lenny Hermar, Luke Kluel, Paulina Robles, and Zach Hummer.
Excellent.
Yeah.
A couple of them from large group speech, or small group, or whatever speech.
From
group
driving
is.
the bus,
So,
right.
Yes, from driving the bus again. But good deal. So congratulations on your accomplishments. So. All right, we'll move right into item F, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. Are there any public comments this evening? Seeing nobody rise, we'll move forward with the study session calendar, section G. Item number 1 is the update from Nick Graham of 1859 Ventures on the Red Fox Reconstruction project. I know that some council members were able to take Nick up on his offer of a walkthrough this evening earlier. So, Mr. Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks everybody for having me tonight. Just wanted to give you a quick update on the status of our project. I appreciate everyone that was able to join us earlier, but a little different venue. I think the last time I talked to everybody was over a Zoom call, so a little different environment. Glad to see everybody in person, but a little over a year later, we are almost done with the apartments. There's a little bit of punch list stuff that's going to probably take up the rest of this week, but they're substantially completed. I'm happy to tell everyone they're all leased. They filled almost overnight. Wide range of tenants. It's actually a pretty cool neighborhood. We've got Warburg seniors, we've got some retirees, and quite a bit of working class, and everybody's meshed pretty well. It's been an awesome project. Certainly had a few surprises, and I'm very glad we did it. I'm very glad we're getting done with the multifamily. There were probably a few moments in between that I maybe would have had a little different assessment, but all things considered, we've had a great roster of Waverly contractors that have done the majority of our sub work. There are a few out of town bidders, but we've spent a couple $1 million in the Waverly proper on material and supply, and more than that even if you extend it to the whole Cedar Valley. So I'm very glad that we were able to really make this a community project. Now on to the future. This year we're just wrapping up bids on the hotel and going to start work out there very soon. And our finished product will be 53 hotel rooms. There'll be 5 or 6 suites, and the banquet facility finished off. And still working on a few details what the conference center looks like, in a post-COVID world. But very excited to start the hotel portion. And all things considered, we're probably only 6 weeks behind schedule with all the supply chain issues. So I didn't do much, but I'll give a huge call out to everybody working out there that through a lot of challenges and hiccups got it done. So with that said, any questions, comments, or otherwise?
Well, I was one of the people who was fortunate enough to go on the tour. I'm very excited to see how it's coming along. I'm very excited at the possibility of that Abe Downing Steakhouse or something going in that space. I always love seeing new restaurants in Waverly, and it sounds like it's a great situation for any of those people living in the apartments there. On a cold winter night, you could actually go out to eat and not even have to, put your coat on. You can just kind of stay in the building. So I think it's just a great project. I'm so happy that you're doing this for us.
Yeah, I took the tour too. It was very impressive. We got to go in one of the apartments, talk to the residents. They're very happy. It looks great. And the rest of it, looks better than the last time I walked through it, which was, I was telling Nick, it was sort of like The Shining the last time I walked through there. But no, it's got potential for restaurant space, meeting space, and we're just really pleased with how it's going.
It's nice that we were able to make that property productive rather than simply tear it down and smooth it over. So it's, I think that is a real victory here for the city, and appreciate all the work that you guys have put into that.
Anything else?
I would agree with it. With it at its location, kind of on one of the entryways into town, having a facility that looks nice and looks well taken care of and is going to be more vibrant. It kind of degraded it for a few years there and just was kind of an eyesore coming into town, and now it's, I know my wife goes out that way every day, so she's been steadily watching the progress as they've hauled stuff out, and was really impressed with getting in this to see what they've done, which is really quite amazing. So,
You know, the timing, you know, maybe it was good, you know, you look at the events, but, you know, can you imagine if you were to build that up from scratch on the same timing? I'm not sure. It would have been kind of difficult. So.
Yeah, and Matt, the cost to deliver that facility new would be astronomical.
It's a wonderful thing to rehab that, and the timing worked out well for you, even though I know it was challenging. So.
Anyone else? All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
everybody.
Graham.
Thank you.
I appreciate Nick coming in to just give us an update, because the city and the citizens have a vested interest in that property's progress. So, item number 2 is discuss on-street parking in the neighborhood by the Waverly-Shell High School. There were some requests. I know that, don't recall which council members kind of got behind it. I believe Ms. Beaufore and maybe Mr. Drenkow had gotten behind that, really. I share in it as well. For this evening's discussion, I do know that Transportation Director Isaac Miller is here from the school district to field any questions. I do know that there's at least one citizen from that neighborhood. I'll kind of, typically it's not open for public, comment, public discussion. I'll leave that to the consensus of the council, because Mr. Lindell that had reached out to you via email is one of those that's present. So I'll just open up the discussion to Ms. Beaufort or Mr. Drenkow first as the
I don't know much about what's going on there. Heather's in the neighborhood, so she obviously has firsthand knowledge. But I would like to hear, if we have any people in that neighborhood, I would like to hear from them.
We can bring that up first. Absolutely. I'll invite Mr. Lindell up to the podium first. If you can just come up, state your name and your address for the record, please.
Richard Lindell, and I'm at 1314 3rd Avenue Southwest in Waverly. And I know Isaac has some concerns too, but my main concerns are the way the students are parking around that area. I'm on 3rd Avenue Southwest, and when I try to pull out of my driveway, and it's a single lane driveway, many times on the other side it's packed all the way down. On both sides of my driveway it's packed, and it's very difficult even to get out safely from that standpoint. You really have to take your time and ease out, and many times I've had to back up, or other people have had to back up, and I don't care whether you're going out frontwards or backwards. It's very, very dangerous up there. Other concerns that I have is the garbage that's being, and I don't mean to infer that all the students are doing this. I mean, there's a lot of good students there. But some of the students are just throwing garbage out, half-eaten sandwiches, plastic wrappers, everything from that standpoint. On the corner of, let's see, it'd be Sunset and 3rd Avenue, many times you'll see cars with their back ends or their front ends probably maybe 5 to 8 feet out into the road. I'm also a school bus driver. And it's very difficult. Sometimes we have to bring buses in and out of there, and it's very difficult to get buses and not safe at all. I was one of the accidents even that occurred that I wiped out the side of a car with a bus. So, but it is very, very difficult. The kids, I don't know, and I'm sure, you know, I've called the police station many times, and they've come up, and I'm sure it's labor intensive too. I mean, because if they're 2-hour parking, they have to mark the tires, you know, and then they have to come back, and it's pretty labor intensive, and it would just seem like that there may be some other solutions. The other thing that many times, I've done it at least twice, that both sides of the street are packed, and on the east end of the high school, there's still parking available. There's maybe 20, 25 parking spaces that are available. And probably, I would assume that's because of the open campus routine, and you know, that they have there, that seniors and some maybe others can come and go throughout the day. And if they park out in that parking lot on the east, they can't get in that. It's not accessible from the east entrance, so they have to go to the front through the principal office there. So I'm you know, it just seems like, you know, there needs to be some better solutions, whether you have, you know, just half the, there's no way you can get 2 cars through there at all, you know, from that standpoint. It's not two-lane traffic at all. And it would seem like if you, whether you go with 2-hour parking and force it rigorously, you know, that's labor intensive, whether you turn around and no parking, you know, from that standpoint during school hours, we're talking, on Sunset, Iowa and 3rd Avenue. I think another option might be to turn around and just park on one side of the street instead of the other. And I know the school system has been considering some options too, that maybe Isaac will address too. So, but that's my concerns anyway. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Linda.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming up and giving some suggestions as well. So definitely, thank you so much.
And I just had a question, Mr. Lindell. There aren't any sidewalks up there, are there?
No, there's no sidewalks on,
Yeah.
well, in fact, there's no sidewalks on Iowa, Sunset, or
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third, no sidewalks whatsoever.
So when you get students who are walking, they're pretty much walking in the street.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was about,
the width of 3rd with 2 cars parked. I know we
It's
don't know
one
that off
lane.
the top.
It's one, if the 2 cars are parked on either side, it's 1 lane.
Because what he's describing is a fire code issue, really.
oh, emergency vehicles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you took it with
yeah.
your bus, so try to get a tanker through there is going to be a
Right.
real challenge.
Well, I would assume even when you're talking about garbage pickup and stuff, I think they do it pretty early in the day, so it probably doesn't affect them that much, but it would have to be tough to get those garbage trucks in and out of there.
Have you had problems with people blocking your driveway? I heard about that from a citizen who lives up there.
I've been concerned about this for the last 3 years or so, and I think I've had 1 or 2 instances
Yeah.
where there was a larger size pickup, shall we say, or truck, and the trailer hitch was definitely in my driveway from that standpoint. And the police have been very receptive about coming up, but you know, I'm sure they're getting tired of me calling too from that standpoint. So, but
Yeah, she said it was more of a problem during after-hours events, like football games, that sort of thing, where they wouldn't be able to get out of their driveway.
to me, that's a little bit more understandable. I can respect that, you know, a little bit more from that standpoint. And I think when you're talking about the more, I don't hate to say older, but the more mature people are parking in at that time, and I think they're more respectful of the spaces there. And I think when we talk about garbage, I think one neighbor on one side, Gene Brazzi, which used to work, and on the other side, they took garbage bags full of stuff and dropped it off at the principal's office, you know. And, you know, it's hard say what the school can do, because it's public streets. I mean, but it's definitely a safety issue, I feel. So.
How many days are we talking? I mean, this is outside of football events, right, that we're talking that this is an issue?
Yeah.
During school days.
Every school day, this is an
Yeah,
issue?
every school day, yeah.
What would be your first choice for a solution?
I would hate to go to no parking, because it might affect the residents up there. I mean, during school. The 2-hour parking extended all through that area would be good, but again, that's labor intensive. I think one side of the street parking might be the best alternative in my mind. But I can see justification for no parking also, but I don't know how much that would affect the actual residents that live there. It wouldn't affect me, and quite a few other people, but there's a couple people right next to the school, right on Iowa Street, for instance, that they use that parking there, and it'd make it pretty tough for them. But otherwise, I think one side of the street might be a good alternative, and maybe less labor intensive too, I think, from that standpoint. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would have to agree. I live up there, right up by the high school. It's a daily event that I have somebody's car rear end blocking my driveway anywhere from an inch to half their car. So it really does affect the residents right in front of, the high school. But our street right in front is much wider. So that when we're pulling out, it's not as bad. But when you go to those side streets, 3rd, Iowa, Sunset, those streets are not wide at all. And it's literally one-lane traffic during school. And it is a safety issue for that. And he's right, when you go around the corner for 3rd Avenue and Sunset, and the cars are literally parked all around the corner. You can't get through with any real size. I mean, I drive a truck and I avoid that area because I'm afraid, like, I could barely fit. So it definitely is a problem, and I would have to agree with the one, maybe parking only on one side specifically in those streets, 3rd, Iowa and Sunset, specifically the one side. The 2-hour parking, I think it just would not solve the problem because I have 2-hour parking in front of my house. It doesn't solve the problem. The police officers would have to be there all day long, and it's just tedious. So doing that around the other areas, I just don't think would be helpful. But the one side parking, I think, would, and I know that it might extend traffic out into the neighborhoods further on. But really, if the students use that parking lot, and I know, having to use only one entrance during the day, that east parking lot is kind of far away from the front of the school building. But making sure that these students are utilizing it. It's not just students that need the 2-hour parking that are parking in the other areas. It's students that are there all day that can use that east parking lot. So I would have to agree with the one side specifically on those areas. Safety with people walking too, the students walking, and people are just trying to get in and out and get their kids dropped off at school or picked up. It's a nightmare, really. That area.
I'd like to hear what the...
I was going to invite Mr. Miller up if... He cringed today when I reminded him of his invitation today. I wouldn't put him on the spot, but
Yeah, so I'll be pretty quick. Richard, and you guys kind of touched on everything. My biggest points are the safety factor. You know, I've witnessed it firsthand driving buses. We don't have enough bus drivers. When you turn on to Sunset, leaving the high school is kind of the main time for kids coming in and parents dropping kids off. And when I've been headed northbound on Sunset, I was taking up, a school bus takes up, I mean, it's one lane, but it's even nerve-wracking one lane. I mean, if a person opened their car, you'd have to stop and wait until they shut their door, because it's that close. But in the instance that I remember that really shook me up about it, I had a kid walking towards the high school in the approach to a house, kind of at their driveway section. And immediately after the driveway, there's cars there, and there's no sidewalk there, so the kid's obviously not going to walk in the grass, they're going to take the street. And I didn't see the kid until he started walking out into the street, and he was inches away from a school bus mirror, which on a school bus kind of hang out to the side of the bus. And I was just nervous as heck. I slammed on the brakes and waited till the kid got past, because it was just so close, it scared the heck out of me. But even as Adam and I have talked, in a school bus, you know, immediately behind the mirror, kind of to the back tires, is a blind spot. And if a kid would fall on the ice in the wintertime and they went underneath the tire, you wouldn't know until it was too late. And so it's a nerve-wracking thing. And I think if you took away one side of parking, it would open up, you know, at least it maybe wouldn't be two-laned, but it'd be enough to have a bus be able to get through, and the safety factor would be at least a lot nicer. And two, I have had numerous calls from people in that area as well, complaining not only about blocking the trash as well, and I've been up there too. I mean, cars, they just park really wherever they want up there. I mean, they'll park halfway into someone's driveway and just leave their car there. And the 2-hour parking we tried on Sunset hasn't really worked. I mean, whether it is kids staying all day, or kind of the open campus thing with job site. You know, you have people that do the job site in the morning, do it in the afternoon. So if there's a parking spot open and they're coming midday, they're just going to fill that spot. So really the 2-hour parking, people can be parking there legally, but it's constantly full. And the same with sports. I mean, if you go there at night during a football game or a basketball game, that's just jam-packed. I mean, Sunset, 3rd, and Iowa are always full when there's a school event going on. You know, yeah, the biggest thing for me is just the safety of kids and school buses. I mean, we've had, since I've been with the school, 4 accidents there, 3 that I've been very familiar with. One would have been heading southbound on Sunset, and when turning, there wasn't enough space, and not being there and looking at the situation after, the driver maybe could have done a few things different, but I wouldn't call it a driver fault because it was such a tough scenario. When they were turning in front of the high school, there was a truck parked all the way at the white line for the stop sign right in front of the high school there, and there just wasn't enough, and with the 4-foot tail swing on a bus, it just clipped the side of the truck. The other one would have been on 3rd Avenue trying to turn northbound onto Sunset, and the same thing, kind of swiped the cars parked all the way around the corner. And then the last one that I remember was actually just trying to go straight, and another car met them. And if you meet a car there, you can't back a bus up. So that car either has to find a spot to get in or back down the road, and this car wouldn't move. So our bus tried to make it through and sideswiped a parked vehicle. It's very nerve-wracking up there. I mean, even I'd like to say I'm a decently skilled driver, and it's nerve-wracking for me. So that's kind of the biggest points that I have.
Can you speak to the quantity of parking spaces in that east lot? Would there be enough?
In an exact number, it'd be very close. I actually had a really good talk with Ed this morning. There are some things that the school could do, and we've talked about. We've not decided to go one way or the other, so I can't say for sure, you know, options that we would go with. But there are a lot of spots open that would make it very close. If you would fill that parking lot, it'd be very minimal on any of the side streets. As to an exact day, I can't guarantee there would be 100% enough for every student, but it'd be very close. I mean, I think that's a good number. Between 25 and 30 spots are constantly open all the way on the east end. It's just most kids don't, you know, if they can park there and they know they can get away with it, you know, why would you walk twice as far for half the distance and you know you're legally parked? It would take a little bit of figuring out to figure out exactly how. You know, we've even talked the possibility of, assigning a parking spot for a student. So then we would know the exact number, and even, as Ed and I talked today, the east parking lot to the high school compared to the middle school to the high school isn't much of a difference. We could always put overflow over there and at least try and keep them off the streets, but then, we have to make sure that they can't park on the public streets legally before we can go that far. But we've talked about a lot of things on our end too, because it is such an issue, and with the public complaints that we've had, it would be nice to solve and figure something out.
So it sounds like if we went to a parking on one side only, there should be enough space in the lot for the ones that would be displaced by that.
Yes, by far.
Are there other schools that assign spots?
Actually, North Polk down by Des Moines, actually, and I first heard of this 2 weeks ago, and that's when I brought it up to Ed, and he had said that they had talked, not maybe to this extent, but to, sectioning, saying high schooler, like seniors, get the front sections because of job site and the open campus, and then, sophomores, or juniors, sophomores, freshmen, back farther. And but North Polk High School numbers every single spot, and every kid is in a raffle by grade. They do it by grade. So same as kind of as the school had talked before, the seniors are up close because they leave and come and go during the day. But then the whole grade itself is raffled in that section, and I thought that was a really cool idea. There'd be a lot of logistics that go with it, to make sure everything's fair, and but it's a really cool idea, because then too, not only does it keep the kids in the parking area, but it also shows where we're lacking on space and what we'd have to do. It gives you an exact number, where likewise it's so much harder to figure out of who's driving and who's not. So it's a really cool idea.
You'd probably need more parking spaces for that if you're going to implement it, though, because there are a number of kids who either don't drive every day or who might carpool or something like that. So you'd have a lot of spaces that weren't being used.
Yeah, that's where things do get difficult, is the kids that carpool, and even too, the seniors, could you utilize a parking spot for someone that's there only for the first 4 periods of the day, and then flip-flop it for someone in the afternoon that's only for the last 4 periods. But it'd be a lot of figuring out to be able to do something like that. But yeah,
so you don't really,
as well.
As far as the school district is concerned, you don't really have a magic bullet solution for us.
No, we don't. I wish we did have a magic solution, and I'm constantly open to suggestions, and I think Ed and the high school staff are as well, because they know it's an issue as well. Sure. It's just, what's the best answer? What's the best way to go? And maybe even trial and error, try something out next year, and if that doesn't work, the next year try something different. And there's, the talking around with other schools we need to do more of. There's a lot of high schools that don't have these issues. Adam and I talked to a couple of high schools that outside of their parking lot, there's no one parked on their side streets. How did they do that? And it would be interesting to know. Because I think there are some things here that the school could do differently as well, to kind of utilize more of the parking area to keep them off the streets. So yeah.
Yeah, I think from, I guess, my perspective, I taught at Cedar Falls for 16 years, and I went to school there when I was there, and that's at least for another couple of years. They're still in the residential neighborhood where they've got one parking lot, but a lot of very narrow streets leading up to the high school, and so they deal with kids parking. I mean, it's one-side parking on those streets that lead up to the high school at Cedar Falls. So I think the one-sided parking probably is the first step to take a look and see if that helps alleviate, certainly from a bus driver or a passing situation, that there's some breathing space to drive on those streets. That just gives them, I don't know that it'll necessarily resolve all the residential, whether they park in front of a driveway or not, but it would definitely give that, just kind of as you drive, where you don't feel like you're having to squeeze your shoulders in to hope that you can pull the rest of your vehicle in with you to make it through some areas.
Yeah, you can only close the bus doors so much, and they're closed. The only thing Isaac and I have spoken about, not that he forgot these, this couple points is, I'm looking at the street view of Sunset here and cars on both sides. And the photo was taken quite a while ago when they were building the new office area, the entrance to the school. So it's kind of dated. But at any rate, when we have snow that's been plowed to the sides, that takes up a little bit of it because a lot of these, carpoolers will leave enough space so their passenger can get out without getting in the pile of snow. So now we've further narrowed it. And then the concern about, these pedestrians walking right beside, this multi-ton bus. And I just cringe. And I'm speaking from the podium when I say this. I cringe when I'm challenged with that, and I don't know if, Mr. Lindell, you don't have a route that drives down that street necessarily, but in that neighborhood, it doesn't matter where it is. But we talk about the evening events, and there's areas, and I don't mean to point out that there's no enforcement, but there is none when we have football games and stuff. There's no parking on the one side of the street down by that east parking lot on the north side of the lot, and that always seems to be filled up. And so when we're talking about emergency response, and there's other things that go on inside the parking lot where, there was a tournament there a couple weeks ago, and there was no way an ambulance was getting into that parking lot. So it's, I think, a morale issue when we talk about these other school districts like Isaac and I did. You go to Grundy Center, they don't have any restrictions on the streets around there other than, just regular 48-hour parking. And you can go down there any time of day, and in front of the school, there's maybe one or two vehicles parked on the street in front of the school, and it might be a resident or somebody that's at the office. Otherwise, every single student is in one of the two parking lots. There's no parking up the streets. It's completely not like this. So I'm encouraged. I'd actually like to talk to one of their administrators and say, what is your handbook rule? What makes this stick? What makes this effective that you don't have this problem? And they're the same way. They only have access in the one door of the school, and their parking lots are on the ends of it. It almost is exactly like our setup here. So I was wondering, Chief, do you have anything? I know that we were presented with this from just a few years ago. If you have any insight regarding like what Mr. Lindell talked about as enforcement and the time that it takes and those types of things.
Yeah, I just provided you a letter that I sent to Dick Crane. It was 4 or 5 months into my time as the chief in 2006. So clearly this has been an ongoing issue for a long time. The reason that was brought up to the council meeting at that time was because the neighbors complaining of receiving citations, parking tickets. Didn't think it was fair that they were getting parking tickets in front of their own residents. So the only thing I would, and I know you will, when we talk about changing the laws around there, the ordinance, is the impact it will have on the neighbors and their daily activities during school times. At that time, we had Assistant Chief Jerry Greenlee and Sergeant Leisinger went and visited 17 of the 19 residences within that 2-hour block, and they were split on whether or not they would be happy with more enforcement or a parking permit, which I don't recommend. I didn't recommend it then, I don't recommend it now. And when you extend and when I say extend the 2 hours, not adding more hours to it, but area. By adding more area or going to one lane, they both have their benefits, but what you'll see is, unless we change the student's behavior, you're just going to continue to push parking further out. And so an area that's not impacted right now will become impacted. Second Avenue is not typically impacted, but it may. I do really support the one side in reference to vehicle traffic safety. And that will help that, but it won't help parking in front of residences and creating those problems. The school handbook states that every student that drives to school is required to register their vehicle and park within the parking lot. Unless that has changed, that is what it says. And over the years, there has been, I don't know what has changed at the school, but I used to get complaints from student parents, why did my kid get a ticket from the school for parking on a public roadway? And we have this issue at Wartburg as well. They are enforcing and can enforce their student handbook. And that's what I would explain to them, is they were not issued a ticket for parking on the public roadway. They were issued a parking ticket for not being compliant to the student handbook. And I think over time, the school's enthusiasm to monitor that has decreased. And so it does need to be a partnership, because that's where the majority of the issues are coming from. There was 42 open spaces today that I counted prior to lunch, but that would not have been enough to move the vehicles that were around that area. But I did see a lot of vehicles that students walked from that did not have a student parking permit on. So there's a lot of them that are not being registered as well. And so it's hard to determine if some of those are neighbors, visitors to the neighborhood, or if they actually are students.
So one thing, so let's see. I first want to say I support the idea of parking on one side of the street. I think that's a viable solution that we can use. One thing that I haven't heard is, so my daughters are freshmen in high school. I've had 2 kids graduate from the high school. I would like to see more space around the intersections. So I know there's lots of places that have a no parking from here to end of the road, or from here to intersections. It would be nice if we could kind of expand the apron around the intersection, so when it's pickup or drop-off time and there's a lot of traffic, if those cars weren't parked quite so close to the intersection. So if you just kind of added a car length, no parking from here to intersection, would make it a whole lot easier to get around. The other thing that I wanted to point out is I think there's a lot of seniors who are taking a lot of classes at Wartburg. So they will come and go. They'll be at the high school for an hour. They'll use the 2-hour parking, and then they'll go to Wartburg, and they'll be there for an hour. And then they'll come back to the high school and park there for an hour, and they're coming in and out. For a lot of those students, it's not cost effective to actually pay for the parking permit. I mean, there is a cost for the high school parking permits, and a lot of these kids, why bother paying for it if I can just use the 2-hour parking? So now, I mean, what's the cost of a parking permit? Like $10 maybe. $5. I mean, but hey, that's a burger at Burger King or something. But I think that there are kids who say it's not worth it to get that permit if I'm never going to be at the high school for more than 2 hours. So I think that for seniors, we may need to figure out what the cultural attitude is there. Is there a way for those commuter kids to just get the permit and not have to worry about it? Because they're having to pay for a Wartburg permit as well. So they're getting double dinged on that permit cost. So that's just some of the insight that was pointed out to me.
Well, it seems like if you had an assigned spot, you wouldn't have to worry about where you're going to park when you come back from Wartburg. Somebody could park in your spot, then you'd have to police that till you train them to not park in other people's spots.
Well, and kind of my concern there is if you're a parent who has to visit the school, where is there parking for, the visitors?
Well, there's not, because I've gone up there to talk to classes, and you wander around, you walk a few blocks to get a spot. But my question was, has anybody asked the students how to solve this problem? I mean, is there any dialogue yet with the students? I mean, the complaints I've heard about are, the cars in front of the driveways and just all sorts of trash, like people's underwear, people's clothing, just garbage that you have to wear gloves to pick up out of your yard. You should wear gloves with all trash, but especially some of this trash. So I think, it's a problem. So I wonder if we can engage somehow, the school should be engaging the kids. Do you respect your neighborhood? Do you respect the people that live around the school? And, what solutions do they have?
We had 50 or 60 of them here just a few
I know, we
moments
should
ago.
have made them stay for the discussion, but.
I think that's a good point. To Brian's point, that's valid. Kids are coming and going, and is it practical to force them to have 2 permits and so on? But But at some point, maybe we get mired in the logistics of all the possibilities, and maybe we just need to have some rules that are enforced and that everybody buys into and says, yeah, we want to do the right thing, and this is the culture we're going to have here. But I agree, you need the buy-in of the student body.
Yeah, and you wonder, what is it about those schools, you know, where they don't have trash all over the neighborhood, and how do they do that? I mean, what is the culture there, and what is the mindset of those kids, and how do we adopt some of that? And, you know, it's not just teenagers that do this. We have this problem around the hospital all the time. Our head of maintenance occasionally, I don't know if it's as bad since we opened the new parking lot, but sends out a memo to all of us with pictures of people's cars and says, you know, you're parking way too close to the stop sign, or you're you know, slopped over somebody's driveway. So adults do that too, not just teenagers. So
I think what's important to remember is, just like the hospital, like Dr. Rathe just mentioned, is the school can be viewed as a business, and we want to have good relationships with businesses when they have challenges with parking. We've got the brewery and Z's and a bunch of other places that are all vying for parking in a similar area, and that's a different whole different conversation. But it's similar in nature to this situation here. I'm sure with Rod's business, you want to be able to have people come and go. If you're open in the evening or during lunchtime or in the morning hours, you'd like to have a couple parking spots available. But when those businesses are busy, you succumb to the nature of the business. And it's kind of the same thing with the school, with as many students as they have and the vehicles that come with it. So I like where you're going. I'm challenged at this point to communicate with the school district that I'm aware of and to see what how they enforce it. And maybe it's an opportunity before we get super gung-ho, don't want to waste too much time, but have a couple council members and Isaac and maybe Ed or somebody with the school to have that conversation of working better rather than just jumping to changing an ordinance right away. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's multiple issues, right? One is safety, and I think if those streets are way too narrow, if it's a pedestrian risk, especially with the weather, and it's bad at night. If you're hiking 2 or 3 blocks to get to your car and it's a narrow lane and there's people coming, it's sort of dangerous to be a pedestrian. Yeah. But I think that's sort of our purview, right? Something we could decide is, how do we want to limit parking? And then do you flip a coin? I mean, whose side of the street gets the parking? That's what I was thinking when you mentioned that, the other side, right? And so, but then I think, how do you engage the kids? And I think if the kids who we had in here, they're role models. And so how do you engage athletes or musicians or the National Honor Society or class officers to figure out some solutions and inspire the rest of their classes to follow suit? And I think the numbering parking spots is, it's not our territory, it's the school district, but I think that's an intriguing idea, because then you have a better idea of who did what hit and run too in the parking lot. But so it's nice to hear some potential solutions, but I think you have to engage the kids to come up with some solutions and to hear about, why is this happening? What is it? Why are people throwing trash everywhere? Stuff like that.
If we did want to explore one-sided parking, Mr. Bronner, would it be permissible with the temporary no parking to put in one-sided, police order for a month, see what the impact is on the parking lot, see what of course, communicating with the school, but seeing what the impact is on the parking lot, seeing how far the parking sprawl is, seeing what the neighborhood's response is to it.
The kids remove.
Well, there's that too, but the 2-hour ones haven't been uprooted. But just a thought, just throwing it out there that you can.
I think it'd be good if staff had a chance to at least meet and discuss this themselves. Yeah. I don't know that council needs to be involved at this level yet.
Right.
It's good to bring the topic up, but if there's something to be enacted, we should be the ones to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So we're more than willing to at least meet, discuss, bring back possible recommendations. You can do odd and even parking either side of the street. It's done in a lot of cities. That way it's fair. We've talked about that. there's things that can be done. It's just a matter of what direction you'd like to give.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line here is that we all agree that the 2-hour parking is really not working. And we need to communicate with the school, work with the school, and see if we can find a better solution, something that's fair to the people that live in the communities in the neighborhood. And I would have no problem with that as long as we stay on this project and don't let it drop, because I think this is important enough that we make it a higher level priority.
And we're at that time of year where, closure of the school year, that's what I'm saying, if we did the trial, if that's an opportunity, or the way that they want to go, is trying it for, the month of May. Those can be taken out. You can evaluate it and have it in place, whatever changes by the start of the school year.
That might be one option, but I'd like to see what kind of discussion we have with the school before we take even a temporary measure.
I agree with that 100%. I'm just saying implementation closer to the school year, versus changing it in the middle of the latter part of the school year for just a month.
Right.
So.
I have a question for city staff, maybe Mike or somebody can answer the construction width on Sunset and 3rd and Iowa. Is that the same, and do we know how many feet that is?
I think it's 35.
Okay, and 2nd and 4th are wider, right?
Candy bottom.
Okay.
And there's no parking on 16th, is there? The one down by Bremwood? Or is there one side?
On the
one
east side, yeah.
Okay.
So I think you're within fire code, if you look at 503 dot whatever. But when it comes into question, though, that snow or somebody parks a little bit, then you've got problems, and it only takes one to stop it, so.
Well, it's not a safe situation.
Yeah, no.
All right. I appreciate those that turned out to give us some insight and some information specific to their area, and appreciate the engagement of the council, of course. Thank you. All right, move forward here with item number 3 under G is discussion of the board and commission's appointment application process. Speaks a little bit further than just the application process. I've kind of put some thoughts together here. Usually I speak off the cuff, but I believe it is important to reflect on the past and what I have learned has become the common means of being considered and then selected to serve our community on behalf of the entire constituency of the City Council on a board or commission. Members serve on boards and commissions that have the authority to make recommendations or make decisions on behalf of the community at large. Neither responsibility should be taken lightly. Unlike municipal elections, the voters are the voice, and the County Board of Supervisors canvass the election and certify the results. The nomination and ultimate appointment rests with the mayor and the City Council on our side of things. Per Chapter 8 that was provided in the council packet, it states that the mayor shall appoint and the council shall approve the appointment of all members of the Airport Advisory Board, Leisure Services Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Municipal Housing Commission, Library Board of Trustees, Electric Utility Board of Trustees, Board of Electrical Examiners, Board of Plumbing Examiners, Civil Service Commission, Fire and Police Pension Boards, and the Personnel Board. As you can see, this particular section of our code does not include all of the current boards and commissions, but I would presume that we have established a precedence for those not included and dismissed the ones that no longer apply. In the past, unless you knew the mayor personally or were strongly recommended by someone of stature in the community, the chances of you serving were fairly slim. I certainly, like many others, have made it known to a mayor of our desire to serve our community. Some have been fortunate to be called upon to do so. Others, likely because they are not within that close circle of the mayor, or others, are dismissed, overlooked, or quite possibly just simply forgotten about that they had made that request. So in an effort to be equitable or more equitable in the manner in which we develop the candidate pool in which a person is considered for such nomination and appointment, I relied on the application procedure. If someone is interested in serving, they can complete the application. If they need reasonable accommodations to complete the application, they will certainly be made. In regard to the terms of these appointments, I do want to state that all seats have term lengths. They are not indefinite or life terms. When a term expires, the incumbent seeking reappointment should be considered amongst any new applicants. So applications going forward will only be accepted when vacancies exist or when a term is expiring. So in the past, we've left the application process wide open to field them ongoing. So for instance, Mr. Benning, it was the beginning of last year, he put in his application to serve on the Civil Service Commission like in the middle of January, even though the appointment wasn't due until May. We're going to take applications closer to that window to prove their intent rather than just I already know. Applications will identify only one border commission. That's the way it's set up right now. So when you complete the application, you're applying for one border commission. Previously, you were able to select all that you were interested in, but it really didn't allow you to be specific of why you were interested in this particular one. It was more of a shotgun approach that I just want to get involved, and I think some due diligence by the applicant is necessary. Multiple applications for separate boards or commissions will be accepted as long as there's openings for those boards or commissions or anticipated term ending or somebody not reapplying. So it's my goal to have a transparent means of appointing individuals to serve that is also expeditious to maintain a fully seated board or commission. I'll admit there are times that process hasn't been quite as efficient. We've had seats vacant. That is not a goal of mine. It's either an overlook or just didn't get to it. The procedure going forward that I am going to implement with this while serving as your mayor, and the future mayor can change it, but it is my goal. We will formally announce expiring terms at a meeting of the City Council. I will formally announce vacancies as they become known to me at a meeting of the City Council. So any vacancies that are coming up or when terms are expiring, those will be noted in the City Council meeting, so they're part of the public record. Applications will be accepted between the formal announcement and the second Friday after, so typically 11 or 9 business days. Outside of any holidays, that kind of thing. If no applications are received in this time period, the process will continue 1 week at a time until an application or applications have been received to consider. After the application period is closed, I may consult with city staff liaison, city council liaison, and the board and commission, that specific board or commission chair regarding the applicant pool in order to aid in selecting the individual who will serve the term available or continue or be reappointed to that term or that board or commission. Once a decision has been made, the appointment will be presented to the City Council on the first available regular business meeting of the City Council for approval. When the appointment is placed on the agenda, all applicants will be advised of the decision pending City Council approval. After the appointment is approved by the City Council, all applications for that board or commission will be null and void for future consideration. Just like if we have a snowplow driver that applies for city work here and we fill that seat and 2 months later we're looking for a new one because somebody else has retired or quit, whatever the case may be, we usually don't go back to that applicant pool to fill that seat. We post the job again. We may reach out to them and say, hey, we've got this opening, you need to reapply, but those applications don't carry forward. So I previously had some, interest in boards and commissions that were put in there shortly after I took the seat. And so they've been sitting in there in pool, and some of those boards and commissions didn't have openings. So I'm open to any considerations. I've spoken with Carla a little bit about it, James a little bit about it, to kind of bounce this off, and there were some changes that were made through those discussions, and I graciously appreciate those opinions, and I graciously appreciate any that you would have as well.
My first question, or I guess my concern, just looking at this, is when would you formally announce expiring terms? How far ahead of time? Because you're giving basically from the time we announce it 2 weeks for applications to come in, figure another week to select a person, to maybe another, so you're talking 4 weeks before it gets on the council to approve. You've got to have enough lead time to be able to do that.
So Val and Carla have a great spreadsheet that manages all of this, multiple pages, one for each of the boards and commissions that has, expiration dates and that kind of thing. It's been on my shoulders to recognize when those are coming up. Val will prompt me, hey, do you have one of these? But usually it's, you need to do this in one of the next 2 meetings. So it is going to be looking at that and backdating to, hey, to give us enough time to get it on the agenda, so you got to roll back a week. And then your application, your evaluation period is another week. And then the 2 weeks of application is another 2 weeks. So basically 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah,
back.
my
So
only
yes.
concern with it, there's not really, I mean, if somebody's announcing that they're leaving and there's going to be a vacancy just because they're not fulfilling a term, that's a different process because we end up with an open seat otherwise anyways. But with an expiring term, if we're going to be following through this process of having somebody that wants to reapply to be reappointed, having that term, but also give other people a chance to get in so that there is that lead time to
That's correct. So that also, by doing that, when we have those terms coming to an end, where we're seeking either reappointment or appointment of a new individual, that'll also put city staff on notice that, hey, when you have, because generally in that 5 weeks or in that 2 week period or prior to that, hopefully the staff liaisons to the boards and commissions are also watching, when those renewals are coming up, so that they're mentioning it at their meetings or reaching out saying, hey, Pete, reaching out to one of his people on Board of Adjustments, hey, your term is ending in 3 months. What's your plans here? And then, communicating that back to me that, hey, it doesn't look like this person's, or they've told me that they're not going to, seek reappointment, that kind of thing.
And Carla, our commission appointments are kind of staggered throughout the year. They're not all a January or a March, or there's some that terms start in March, some start in January, some start in May.
Right, yep,
Yeah,
correct.
they're kind of spread out.
Correct, and I would just add too, excuse me, but Valerie typically, like probably all the time, but almost all the time I'll say, just to save her, but emails the incumbents 2 months before their expiration date and lets them know your term is expiring. If you'd like to continue, go ahead and go online and fill out the online application. But as far as new appointments, yeah, we wouldn't know.
So in this case, when you send out that announcement, they wouldn't be able to reply right away. They'll have to wait until it's announced at the city council meeting.
Well, I guess the mayor didn't elaborate on how far in advance he would accept those applications, so I guess that would be something we would need to...
But I suppose when you send out that announcement saying that your term is expiring, you could actually say, this is the day that it's going to be announced, because you should be able to know that it's being announced and saying, this is the day after which you can, resubmit your application.
Because there's been a little bit of confusion by people by the applications being out there that there's an opening, or when you talk about, hey, there's an opening here, and they go on there and like, well, I'd like to serve on this better than I would the one that they say that there's an opening for. We're not going to turn off and turn on what's open and closed. That's just a monotonous, never-ending thing. I guess if somebody, one of those people that is already in there and is, seeking to go, I don't think there's any foul behind it. You get them applying in that, because if we look at 5-6 weeks back, they have a 2 week advance. I mean, it's not really an advance, because I don't look at the date that a person applies. I mean, you guys were all part of, the Human Equity and Diversity Commission with that selection, but that was a brand new virgin, process. So I like your consideration for that. I think that would be more to try to handle.
You could just open it up when Val sends the incumbents a announcement.
Yeah.
I guess that would be my recommendation.
That's fine.
Just do it all at the same time.
And then that would actually you wouldn't have to go through the process of taking the other applications if that person wanted to re-up or if you intended to renew.
I think
Well, or you just have them all
the mayor's
come in at the
because it
same
sounds like
time.
he wants to, even if there's wanting to re-up, that he wants to allow other people to.
Yeah, but then you get them all at once instead of having this staggered.
Right, because I've actually reached out to people, hey, you gave me this, 13 months ago. Are you interested? No, I was interested in the conversation that was going on at the time. They kind of had that agenda feel to it. So I want to, consider everybody on their own merits. And the other thing is somebody may reach out, Val may email that person saying, hey, your time is coming up. But part of this is communicating, like planning and zoning, communicating with Tim and the chair of planning and zoning, and maybe Isaac, and maybe Bill even, in talking about, might be that person isn't, really good for reappointment. Maybe their attendance has been poor, whatever. So
On that point, is it you may consult or you're going to consult with the chair and
that was very, very intentional, because sometimes they may not want to, consult. I've gotten information from Pete recently. I've gotten information from, other council liaisons. I've gotten, from wherever. It's my intent to do that. It's my intent to do that. I didn't want to, these aren't, rules and procedures. I just wanted to give you an idea of that process of bouncing off of other people.
There's not really much reason to consult.
Right.
unless they aren't showing up for the meetings.
Right. And I keep an eye on that too. I know that somebody keeps an attendance track, and Bill knows that I do as well. It's something that I compare, and when I look at it is, I look at the average attendance record of the entire board or commission, and if that one person's attendance is below the average, that sparks in my mind that they're below the average of the rest of the commission for their attendance. So that really, and that's when I will engage with, Isaac or city staff, specifically, or your council liaisons. That's where I've been missing. I'll admit that, is speaking with council liaisons more about their engagement with that individual on that commission.
So will the expiring terms just be announced at a city council meeting, or are you going to publicize that? Because a lot of people don't watch the city council meeting, so.
So that's why announcing it at the city council meetings, it'll be in the minutes, and then we'll also be, engaging with, the city's Facebook page. And I always share it on mine. I know Heather shares stuff on mine. I think Matt does once in a while, or whoever's got that outlet to share that. We don't want to be, closed. We want it to be equitable to everybody that's interested to serve. Again, the closed circleness of things in the past, and of who's eligible to be considered, I think is something that we're trying to break here. So there are people that have applied and that I've appointed that I never knew before their application came in. And that's great. I applaud that.
Yeah, I think not everybody has Facebook. I don't, right? So I think it'd be nice to put it on the website, or maybe have the paper.
I think that
yeah.
And it'll be on K-Way.
The day after the meeting, it can go on the website. Also, that shouldn't be a hard thing to do.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you give us some idea? I know it's hard to generalize, but in general, do you have a plethora of applications for every opening?
No.
Is it more, does it lean more towards, it would be nice to have more applicants?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are probably people that serve on boards or commissions that if they were honest with themselves and they knew the applicant pool that was out there, they very well may say, I'd give my seat to that person to serve. They don't know who the other applicant, I guess it's public record who applies, but, unless they inquire to who else has applied, they may say, I have no problem with that person serving, and I'd give up my seat to them. So
my only concern, I don't even really want to call it a concern, but I applaud that we're trying to put structure to this and transparency to it. I think that's critically important. I hope that we're not creating a structure that will inhibit people applying. And true confessions here. When I read 11 days or 9 business days,
It's not very long.
I probably would not get it done in that time.
Right. But there are people that want to serve and are looking for that opportunity in a specific, board or commission. And that's why, it'll stay open until we get applicants, But to say I'm going to hold it open until we have 3 applicants, we'd have empty boards and commissions.
Right, no, I'm not suggesting.
Right.
But that might be a little short. I mean, if you're on vacation, you're not going to know about it.
I'll just say this, any process that we do geared towards this type of arrangement, in my mind, is much better than me going out and soliciting one-on-one to an individual.
Absolutely.
Of just people that I know.
Sure.
That are probably more like-minded like me that some people might disagree with. I think this is an equitable way of those people reaching. I've had people come to me and say, hey, I'd really like to serve. Fill out an application. One never comes through. So how invested are they?
Well, the bottom line here is that this is really the mayor's prerogative on how he wants to appoint these people and how he wants to have them apply. And I applaud his efforts to make this into a formal process. I think we haven't had that for a long time, and I really appreciate seeing this. And I would encourage anyone, if they want to serve on a city commission or board, that they, when there's an opening, they put in their application. I would agree, though, I think as much communication as possible, more communication is better.
Absolutely.
But, here again, that's really your decision on how you want to run that.
Absolutely. I appreciate that recognition on that. I think the other thing with this is the gender balance tends to be an issue. We need all walks of life, male, female, across all different types of, career involvement, professional involvement, it doesn't matter. We need all different walks of life to have a voice in different things that are going on. It'd be amiss. I have the chair of the Board of Adjustments, Pete. I saw you had your hand up once.
Pete Lampy, Waverly-Shell. I probably could safely say I've had more time on boards and commissions than anybody in the room from the city of Waverly, and been appointed by more mayors and approved by more different city councils. And the system that always was in place was a matter of the way I looked at it on all the boards that I served on, was that part of your job as a board member is that when there's going to be an opening, you help try and recommend people to be interested in the position, educate that person so they understand what the job is. Because I've been told by people that because I get contacted particularly from the planning and zoning members, when there's an opening there, they'll ask me if I know of anybody that would work good on planning and zoning. I'll go talk to the person, explain to them what the job is, and say you need to go talk to the mayor. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the way I had always dealt with it. Filling out an application within a certain restricted time period and everything, that's just like I'm going to have an opening as chair of the Board of Adjustment. I've got an opening coming up in May. I went out and was talking to a former member to see if she had any recommendations, because I was going to need a woman to fill the position, and it happened that actually her daughter came into the conversation and was interested. She's put in an application already. Would she have to do another application on that time period thing now?
I'd probably hold that one in consideration for the change that we've had.
But then it's a matter of
right.
That's always been the system that the mayors had systems, council people have had systems of people they know. You get a good diversified group. I've met some very interesting people that I didn't know before I served on boards and commissions with them. And it's worked well as far as I can tell. So I'd recommend not getting too complicated with a filing process. Yes, it's nice to have some names, but A good deal of the people that state an interest and want to fill out an application are just as the mayor said. A year later, when there's an opening on that board, oh no, I'm not interested because the issue I wanted to get on about has been taken care of. Well, that's what you got to explain to when you go talk to people.
Right.
You know, you can't do this as a single issue thing. It's a matter of it's an entire community over the long run.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm thinking is, I agree with a lot of things that have been said. I mean, first of all, I think Rod made a great point that this is the mayor's purview. I appreciate that the mayor is trying to open up this process and get new blood in, but in the end, the mayor points to the mayor thinks is best for the job. I really like the application in the sense that it allows new blood into the system, people who hadn't been known about before, to be on these commissions. I think it's a great way for people who, aren't well connected to get into the system. But I also agree that this shouldn't be a barrier. I don't like the idea of, well, if you didn't fill in that application, we won't consider you. I think that as many different ways as we can get people interested, they're all good. If we have someone who just comes up to the mayor and says, hey, I'd like to be on this commission, versus someone who, files the official paperwork, any way we can get people interested in these commissions is good. So I really like this process, but as other people said, I don't want it to be a barrier. I'm more interested in creating new on-ramps to these commissions rather than making more hurdles for these positions. So I like the process, but I just want to make sure it doesn't become a barrier.
Right.
But in the end, again, it's the mayor's decision how he's going to proceed.
I've been in that position where somebody did approach me and said, fill out an application. I don't do email. I don't do that stuff. Let's fill it out.
Oh, yeah,
I just do it right on my phone and take that barrier down right there on the spot. And they don't have an email, just put something in to get them by. At least they're in there with their phone number and go from there. So
I think it does. I like everything that was said here, and definitely talking and educating the community and finding people that would be interested in explaining that to people. You got to tell them what it's about, because if somebody just jumps in, they may not like it and not do a very good job, or say I can't do this anymore. So definitely educating people is very important. However, that application process, I feel like it does give some accountability to the mayor as well, saying yes, this person did apply, and so that's why I really like it, that equitable part about it, and that there is that accountability there.
all right. And it's definitely not, perfect, but we're exactly. So
refining it.
Thank you for doing it.
absolutely, no problem. All right, we'll move forward to item H, reports from boards and commissions. Item 1 there is the Airport Commission minutes of January 13th of 2022. Speaking of, they're going to have an opening eventually here. Section I is staff updates. Mr. Bronner.
We have none tonight, sir.
All right. Move into city council comments. Mr. Birgen.
Well, I would like to congratulate the Waverly-Shell girls basketball team, who will be playing at state in Des Moines versus Bishop Heelan tomorrow. Good luck to them. I also want to congratulate the Wartburg women's basketball team, who will be playing in the NCAA tournament versus Milliken on Friday at Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So congratulations to them. And anyone who wants to talk about city business, I will be at the Poorhouse after the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Beaufore.
I have 2 comments here. The first one is on February 21st, I did ask about the ambulance and the specs and the features of the ambulance. And I had questions from people in the community regarding its similarity to other ambulances that have been bought around in other communities. It was a reasonable question from citizens, and it was a reasonable question for myself to ask. In response to my reasonable question, I was asked another question. Do we usually ask about the specs? I replied, no, we don't. In response, because I was caught off guard by the abrupt return of that question, but I was wrong when I said, no, we don't. So for that, I'm asking for some grace. We do ask questions about specs and features when it comes to buying vehicles for the city purchases. Or typically there's staff present that gives specs or talks about why there are certain features and why it helps the staff out or good for the staff to have. Such as like garbage trucks or the police vehicles, special lawnmowers and such, fire trucks even. So it is a part of the council and the citizens' duty to ask these questions. And I received multiple comments regarding that specific section in the council meeting on the 21st. And I did ask for grace, and I asked for grace for some of the city staff as well. EMS is officially an essential service in Iowa. Many counties and cities will be voting for funding for it soon, and we need to educate the community about this. This is simply what I was trying to accomplish through my questions about the ambulance. Just simply to educate the community and educate myself as well. And we have that obligation to educate ourselves and to vote. The second comment that I have is that girls basketball went to state tonight, and it has definitely been very noisy in my neighborhood this year, so that is a wonderful thing to hear the ambulances go by and just the excitement, and to be able to just sit in my house or out in the front yard to wave at everybody, and the neighborhood enjoys that, so congratulations to the girls basketball.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rathe?
Nothing for me.
All right, Ms. Meyers?
I found myself reflecting tonight as we were celebrating all these amazing accomplishments of the kids in our community, and just feeling really, really thankful for the place that we live and the community that we have and all the wonderful assets that Waverly has to offer. And in contrast to that, my heart is very much with the people of Ukraine and all of the suffering that's going on, and I just hope that the leaders of our world can make this be short-lived and that we can all live in peace.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider?
Nothing.
Mr. Drenkow?
Nothing tonight.
All right, Mr. Kangas?
I'm good for him.
I only had a couple things. Had oath of police officer this morning. So welcome him to our force. Basketball was another one on my list. With those recognitions, if there is something, I just want to say this publicly, if there's something that's overlooked with recognitions, it is possible for that to happen. It's not intentional. Bring it to my attention. We don't want any disgruntled people that, hey, my child accomplished this. I try to do my best to pay attention to what's going on and talk to Mr. Bodensteiner and get information, but sometimes things can be missed. So it probably has happened. I apologize. Number 4, Garrett's not here tonight, but people have seen the signs in the parks. I know that they've been up for a while, some of them, that kind of thing. They look just wonderful as you get around to them. And I'll make that note tonight with this procedure with boards and commissions that the Human Equity and Diversity Commission currently does have a vacancy. So it is a true vacancy, so get your applications in. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Birgen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.